A brand new Bungie weekly update has just been released, unveiling a bunch of new official Destiny 2 news and information. And guys, this was an interesting one. There's stuff in this update that I did not expect to read, so let's get started. What is up, guys? Reacquisition here, and today, again, we have a really interesting and actually really big weekly update. A lot of new Destiny 2 information. Bungie talked about the changes they're bringing with the new Prestige raid layers, and also about the new Solstice of Heroes event, and all of that stuff. And just before we jump into that, guys, if you're looking for amazing gaming headphones, including the ones I personally use, the A40s, I've partnered with ASTRO, so check the link in the description down below, save some money, and help me out. That's a definition of a win-win right there. Okay, now let's get into the news. So, Bungie actually provided a really neat graphic that I'm going to show you, we're going to break down, and frankly, I really hope they provide these graphics kind of at the beginning of every month. They are very helpful. So, this is it right here, and it outlines all of the events happening within Destiny 2 for the month of July. So, first off, next week, July 3rd to 9th, we have the Faction Rallies Winners Week, and that's going to be if Future War Cult wins or whoever, their prize weapon is going to be available, that's all that is. Mayhem Crucible playlist, so Mayhem is back next week. Then, very interestingly, we have Bungie Day, 7th day of the 7th month. Now, the fact that Bungie has outlined this is a fan appreciation day, Bungie Day, but the fact that it's here in this outline of things to come in Destiny 2 means that maybe Bungie is planning to do something on this day, have an exclusive emblem for those who sign on, who knows, but that's interesting, keep your eye out. Moving on from there, we have July 10th to 16th. We have the return of the Iron Banner, and Guardian Con takes place July 13th to 14th. I will absolutely be in attendance if you guys are there. Don't be afraid to come up and say hi. I'm going to be wandering around the show floor and all that stuff, trying to meet as many of you guys as I can. And interestingly, about Guardian Con, for those who may not know, Bungie is going to be there. They're going to have a presence, and Gambit, the brand new mode coming in Forsaken, is going to be playable at the show floor, which is really exciting. So, that's what's happening there. We move on to the next week where things are happening, and that is July 17th to 23rd. This is a big week. So firstly, we have the launch of Update 1.2.3. Now, according to the most recent development roadmap, here are all the things happening with Update 1.2.3 called Solstice of Heroes. Launches July 17th. We have the Solstice of Heroes seasonal event, except we don't. I'll talk about that in a sec. We have 6v6 quick play. So all quick play is changing to 6v6. Big change there. We have a permanent Rumble playlist being instated. We have the introduction of bounties back into the game. We have Expansion 1 and 2 Raid Lair Prestige, probably the biggest overall change with this update. Then we have PC Clan Text Chat. We have Year 1 Triumphs available on Bungie.net, and we have more exotic armor sandbox changes. So last week, Bungie actually outlined all of the different armor pieces that are going to be updated and how they're going to be updated. I've done a video on that. It's linked above right here. Definitely recommend checking that out if you haven't, because there are some very big changes and your favorite armor piece could get a whole lot better, let's just say. Now, again, those are the things that are supposed to launch on July 17th, but we have some more things going on that week. Firstly, we have the final faction rallies of Season 3. That's super interesting and kind of unexpected. Is there going to be a Season 4 that's going to happen before Forsaken? Because Forsaken launches September 4th. That is a very long period of time when there's no faction rallies. It seems like they're trying to get this in before July 31st, which I'm going to talk about in a sec, but also, we have the Supremacy Crucible playlist being the featured playlist for that week. Moving on from there, we have on July 24th to the 30th, we have Faction Rallies Winners Week. Then we have the Doubles Crucible playlist back. Not too much happening there. But then the big event is starting on July 31st, Solstice of Heroes begins. So previously, like before today, it was basically stated that on July 17th with update 1.2.3, Solstice of Heroes would start. But now those things are being separated, which, personally I'm actually glad about because I'm in Florida to the 19th, but, that is kind of a weird thing that they're doing. And it also, again, could be indicative of some pretty big changes coming with Solstice of Heroes. It really does seem like they're trying to squeeze in faction rallies before Solstice launches. And the question is, will Solstice provide enough content to warrant an entire month with no faction rallies, right? Will it introduce brand new activities specific to this event? That's a definite possibility, and that's something to absolutely be aware of. But that is the outline of things coming in July, but frankly, we have a lot more to talk about. First off, I'm kind of skipping ahead in the order of the weekly update, but I really want to talk about Prestige Raid Lairs. There is some big stuff coming with these when they're introduced on July 17th. So what they're going to be is that the actual activity, the actual raid lairs will not change. So like in the Prestige Leviathan, where, for example, if you do the dogs, there's 6 dogs, but then if you do the Prestige Leviathan raid and do the Pleasure Gardens, the dogs encounter, there's 8 dogs. So that activity actually changes. That's not happening with the raid lairs. They're staying exactly the same, but the Prestige version will have new activity modifiers and curated loadouts. So what is that? Well, Bungie says that each week there is a curated weapon suite and a global activity modifier for Spire of Stars and Eater of Worlds. The weapon set and the modifier will be the same across both activities. So curated weapon loadouts are based on weapon archetypes. So over the summer, you might see some combinations that require you to equip an auto rifle, submachine gun, sniper rifle, or scout rifle, hand cannon, rocket launchers. So that's going to be your loadout essentially for that given week. So the first, week it launches, for example, it might be auto rifle, submachine gun, sniper rifle. Now you can have whatever auto rifle, whatever submachine gun, whatever sniper rifle, but it has to have that as a loadout. And they say that there are not going to be locked loadouts. So you can change your auto rifle to another auto rifle within that raid. It just, of course, has to be an auto rifle. Now, in addition to these curated loadouts, you also have to deal with modifiers. 2 are going to be brand new, and they are reintroducing Prism, that modifier, back into a potential raid modifier. So that's really going to change things up from week to week to week. Now, what kind of rewards are associated with these Prestige Raid Lairs? Well, there's going to be, firstly, 400 power weapons. I am not making this up. So, the only way to get to 400 power before Forsaken launches is by participating in the Summer Solstice event, but the only way to get 400 power weapons before Forsaken is by completing Prestige Spire of Stars and Eater of Worlds. Every time you complete all of the encounters in a Prestige raid lair that week, you will be rewarded with a 400 power raid weapon. This weapon can be any raid weapon from Destiny 2, not just the weapons that drop in that specific raid lair. That's big. Now, for those who may not know, the new power level cap for Forsaken is apparently 600. That's what the devs told us at E3. So getting to 400 power before that launches, that is a big jump. Anyone kind of trying to get raid ready and go for worlds first when Forsaken drops for that new raid, that's going to be a big deal. So already, we have a pretty big reward for doing Prestige Raid Lairs, but we actually have more. There's also going to be Raid Armor Ornaments. Each Prestige Raid Lair has its own set of unique armor ornaments. Don't really care about that, to be honest, but for collectors and so on, that is cool. But there's also going to be exotic Masterwork Catalysts. Both Raid Lairs have a Masterwork Catalyst that can be only found as a rare drop in that activity. Now, what those catalysts are, it isn't 100% confirmed because things can still change up to the moment of launch, but according to the database, for one of them, the Slipper Simulant is getting a catalyst that drastically reduces its charge time. That sounds pretty good. It's available apparently in Spire of Stars. So if they have legit catalysts, that's going to be huge in motivating people to play these Prestige raid layers. So Bungie also kind of had a Q&A about questions because these are some pretty big changes. Number 1, is anything happening to the Prestige version of the Leviathan raid? The answer is nope. Prestige Leviathan will stay exactly as it is. This weapon curation and modifier will only apply to Eater of Worlds and Spire of Stars. But in 1.2.3, it might be worth going back and playing some more Leviathan Prestige to see if Callus has a new way to enhance one of your favorite shotguns. Ooh, that's a little hint there. Are Prestige raid layers getting per encounter changes? We already went over this. No, they're not. How many of the Prestige raid activities will be active each week? All of them. Do you want to play all 3 Prestige raid activities each week on 3 different classes for maximum exotic catalyst and 400 power weapon farming potential? Go for it. And lastly, when will Prestige raid layers become available? Current plan is for both Prestige raid layers to be active with modifiers right when the patch goes live. We feel like this is in line with Prestige being a new way to play each week instead of a one-time event, but we are open for feedback on this. Alright, so all of you raiders out there, including me, that is some great news. I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited to experiment with different loadouts, and frankly, my plan is to make videos on how to accomplish each of the different, raid layers for each week based on the modifier and the curated loadouts. That sounds like a ton of fun. But we're going to move on to more information, and we're going to talk about the Crucible changes coming also with that big patch. So, here are the Crucible playlist update changes coming with patch 1.2.3 on July 17th. Firstly, quick play. Increase player configuration to 6v6 and updating the playlist description. Removing supremacy from the pool of available game modes. For control, updating control win score to 150. Control zones will initially be neutral. For clash, updating clash win score to 100. For competitive, bomb fuse timer in countdown lowered from 40 to 35 seconds. For general, Rumble will become a full-time playlist, and Supremacy will be added to the weekly featured playlist, updated to 6v6, and will have a win score of 150. For the Crucible ranks update, players will be able to earn Valor rank from additional playlists. So from competitive, Crucible Labs, Iron Banner, and Trials, you will get Valor. Great change. So, joining a game in progress will protect your Valor win streak from that game. If you lose, no penalties will be incurred for your Valor win streak, again, as long as you joined in progress. And if you win, your Valor win streak will increase. Great change, should have been in from the start. Moving on from there, players will be matched using their glory rank. This means your opponents will be similar rank to you. The higher you climb, the tougher your opponent. Obviously, then glory loss streaks will be retuned to be less punishing over time. Consecutive losses will decrease the rank points lost instead of increasing. Streaks will still cap out at 5, and then lastly, all rank streaks will no longer reset once they hit their cap. And moving on from there, the last thing we're going to talk about today, but a really interesting thing, and if you've stuck around this long, I think you'll be rewarded because this is some really cool information. It talks about costs and collections. With Destiny 2 Forsaken, collections are being introduced, and they keep track of everything you've gotten, but you can also kind of withdraw that thing from that collection. So Bungie did say, hey, you can not only keep track of all the exotics you've gotten in Destiny 2, but if you want a certain exotic, you can withdraw it directly from the collection in your main menu. You don't have to go to the vault or anything like that. So they have kind of a Q&A here with the introduction of collections in September. Number 1, what items from year 1 inventory will collections track? So, collections include any weapon, armor piece, ghost, ship, sparrow, emblem, or shader available in year 1 of Destiny 2. That brings up a good point. Is there anything I can dismantle before Forsaken launches? So, If you have an item in your inventory right now, you can safely discard it and retrieve it from collections in September. This does not include consumables, so hang on to those if they matter to you. Wow. So I can apparently, according to this, delete all my weapons or all my armor, free up a ton of vault space, and then when Forsaken launches in September and I get collections, it will still keep track of all that stuff and I can withdraw it again whenever I want. That is absolutely fantastic. What an awesome change, and that will completely fix all of the vault issues in this game. Like, there'll be no vault issues whatsoever. But the questions continue. If I dismantled something previously, will it be waiting in my collections this September? The answer? Your collection will begin with every piece of gear that you were holding in inventory or within your vault upon the launch of Warmind. If you had dismantled an item prior to May 8th, it will not be available within your collections. So again, this applies to anyone who's hearing my voice right now. Like, if you're hearing my voice, that should mean that we're past Warmind, obviously, and you can safely dismantle kind of anything you want and get it back with the September expansion. Now, of course, I'd be a little careful in case something goes wrong, but for stuff that you're, not super interested in holding on, just holding on for the sake of you don't want to delete it, you want to have it maybe sometime down the road, you should be safe to delete that stuff. And lastly, what items from year 2 can be reacquired from collections? With the addition of random perk rolls to items starting in year 2, we've had to make a tough call for collections. We investigated numerous options for gear with random perks, fixed collection perks, buyback limits, reroll mechanics, and many others, but each of these came with issues that impacted the collections experience in a negative manner. Ultimately, we decided to disable purchase of all year 2 randomly rolled legendary weapons and armor. They continue, we don't like keeping some items from experiencing the full collections treatment, so we're looking at a long-term solve for storing your exact perk rolls in collections. So that's a really interesting thing, but that's really going to come up when Forsaken launches. And especially because you can withdraw all the stuff you have right now, your vault and your spaces and stuff will go towards those randomly rolled items and so on. Now, we actually have one more thing. How much will it cost to reacquire items out of collections? We're currently working on costs for item acquisition and we'll have more information at a later date. We have 2 main goals when deciding on reacquisition costs. Number 1, reacquisition isn't a currency sink. We aren't trying to make you spend all of your hard-earned glimmer, we just want to make sure the items you find out there in the world still have value. Also, players won't have to deal with currency conversions. For example, if a shader dismantles into glimmer, it costs glimmer to reacquire. If the shader came from Eververse, it dismantles into bright dust, and therefore it costs bright dust to reacquire. These same goals are true of all collection items. That makes sense to me. And the last thing they talk about is just that it won't give you any sort of power advantages when you withdraw an item from your collections. It's just going to be like the same power level that you are. So that's a bunch of really interesting information right there, and that's kind of where the information stops for this weekly update. Again, very big one, a lot of stuff we had to talk about, but those are some big changes and some really awesome changes. Coming July 17th, there's going to be a lot more to do in this game, especially in terms of raiding, and I'm very excited to see what Solstice of Heroes brings in the end of July. Guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at Reacquisition. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.